Do I have full knee extension range of motion? So this is one of the most critical pieces and most critical things that we need to achieve after ACL injury or ACL surgery in order for us to get back to the activities that we want to do and live the life that we want pain-free and with full function, right? So this is one of those massive milestones that we need to achieve, especially early on. So what does knee extension mean, right? So knee extension means straightening of your knee, right? So can you fully straighten your knee? So let's dive in a little bit more into this. All right, so why is knee extension so important? So let's talk about the why here, right? So normalized joint mechanics, right? So our knees naturally have a certain ability to either straighten and bend to a certain extent, right? Now, within reason, everyone's going to have similar knee range of motion, but there's always going to be some variances, and that's okay. How do we tell what's normal for you? Well, we look at the non-surgical or the non-injured side, right? So not having full knee extension is going to alter the mechanics at your knee joint, and it's going to lead to a lot of different issues. So not having this full extension is going to affect these types of activities, walking, things like even just standing for a period of time, squatting, stairs. And then you can imagine when you get back to doing those higher level activities like running, jumping, cutting, etc., this is going to show itself in one way, shape, or form when you get to this level, right? So you might have things like pain. You might have increased swelling because your knee is taking more forces and abnormal forces that it's not accustomed to. And you're just going to have an overall lack of progress, right? So this is how important this is. And it's such a missing piece. So many ACLers get stuck in their journey and they're not sure why, right? And oftentimes this is because they were told that their knee is fully straight, but in reality, it isn't, right? So we're going to cover that today. And the further out from surgery you get, the harder it can be to get your full range of motion back. So this is so important that we get knee extension back as best as we can as early as possible after surgery. So let's take a look at walking here. So this is going to be a little bit more of a exaggerated example because it's going to be very clear in this video. However, this is something that I do see pretty often, right? And maybe not to this extent, like we'll see this early on, but it can be months down the road. I talk to a lot of ACLers who are like 2, 3, 4, 5 months down the road, and they still have a bent knee when they walk. This is how critical this is. So let's take a look at this video here. As you can see, look at his left knee here, right? The left knee is the ACL side, and you can see his knee does not get fully straight. And as he's walking on a bent knee. His right side is the normal side, right? You can see he's going through a nice normal walking mechanics here. Let's go back a little bit. But you can see, boom, that left knee never gets straight, right? It's always bent as he walks. Now, naturally, when we walk, as you can see here, right, the knee is going to get straight as we put our weight over that foot, right? So knee goes straight, bent, straight, right? That's normal. But if you don't have full extension range of motion, your body can't access that ability to straighten it. Your walking is going to be thrown off. And then, as we talked about earlier, all these other things are going to get thrown off because of it, especially when it comes time to jog and run. So why else is knee extension so important? Quadriceps muscle function, right? Your quads are the muscles in the front of your thigh. And they are so important that we regain full quadriceps muscle strength and function after the surgery, right? So if the knee is not fully straight, the quads will never be able to function at 100% capacity. This is why restoring full knee extension range of motion is so important. So after ACL surgery or injury, the quadricep muscles are affected the most by far. And it takes months up to a year or even more of good rehab, to fully regain quad strength. And one of the biggest predictors of knee function, long-term knee health, right, and osteoarthritis risk, and reducing your ACL injury risk is quadricep strength. So if we're not getting quad strength back, we're kind of leaving our health and our active lifestyle up to chance. And even worse, we're increasing our risk for a future injury, right? But we can't get full quad function if our knee isn't fully straight. So by now you guys are kind of seeing how this all kind of plays together with each other. So your quads, right, are these muscles right in the front of your thigh there. And as you can see on this image on the left, the surgical limb, which is the right knee, but from our view, it's going to be the left side with all the bandages on the knee there, right? So you can see the difference in quad muscle size between the surgical leg and the non-surgical leg, and the quad especially, right? That muscle right there in the front of the thigh. So that's our journey there for a good chunk of this rehab process, is getting that quad function back. But that just kind of ties in the point that the knee's got to be straight in order for us to do that. All right, so you're like, John, knee extension is important. That's great. We get it. But what actually is full extension? Because this is so important. As I said before, a lot of ACLers are going through this journey. They're told that they have full knee extension, but they really don't. And this is leading to confusion, frustration, and all these different types of negative feelings because they feel like they're doing things right, but there's just something that's holding them back. And sometimes it's this. I talk to a lot of people, and this is usually a common culprit with that, right? So here's a good image for you guys. So let's take the top image first. Let's pretend this is your non-surgical knee, right? So if I ask you to lay on the ground and fully straighten your non-surgical knee, so I'm basically saying push the back of your knee into the ground and try to straighten your knee as much as you can. And you see the heel come off the ground, like it is in this top picture, right? You see my heel is off the ground. That means you have knee hyperextension, right? That's your normal, because that's your non-surgical side. That's your normal. Now, if we look at the bottom image, if let's pretend this is the surgical side now, go ahead, straighten your knee, try to push your knee into the floor, and you don't get that heel up, right? That means that you're missing those critical degrees of hyperextension. So it is absolutely so important, so critical that we restore full symmetrical, keyword is symmetrical knee extension range of motion compared to the other side. So if your non-surgical side has hyperextension, you bet your surgical side better get to the same exact amount of hyperextension. That's how important it is, right? So a lot of times ACLers are unfortunately told, yeah, your knee's fully straight, but just because your knee can get flat or get to like 0 degrees, like the bottom image, doesn't mean it's full if your non-surgical side can hyperextend, right? So it's super, super important. And it's one thing now to have full extension or full straightening range of motion when you're lying down or sitting, but it's actually another thing to have full extension when you're standing and when you're putting weight through your legs. So here's a quick standing or a weight bearing test that I like to use with my clients. All right. So basically what you're going to do in this test, you're going to stand with your back against the wall and your heels against the wall as best as you can. And the cue here is going to be try to touch the wall with the back of your knees, right? So you're actively straightening your knees. Right? And if you look from the side, you're going to see here, I just paused the video here, right? You're going to, if you're missing knee extension range of motion on your surgical side, you're going to see it kind of pop out like it is doing here, right? So it's important that if you have a camera filming this or somebody's watching you, that they're watching you from the side of your non-surgical leg. So in this video, for example, the surgical leg would be the right leg, which is further away from the camera here, right? So if you can see one knee in front of the other from the side, that knee that pokes out in front is missing extension because it's not able to go back further, right? So this is an important test to do to make sure that you have full knee extension range of motion in standing, right? We have to get it in sitting or lying down first, but it's important that we carry that over into a standing position. All right, so let's break down this a little bit further because this last little piece is also really important. So there's a difference between passive range of motion and active range of motion. So what is passive range of motion, right? So passive range of motion means that your knee has the available motion to fully extend to the same degree as the other side, right? And this can be seen if you have your knees fully relaxed. Let's say you prop your heels on something like a foam roller or like a low chair or a towel roll, and your knees are fully relaxed and gravity is just kind of letting them sink down, right? That's going to be a passive range of motion test. Or if your therapist or somebody moves your knee into extension for you where you're relaxed, but somebody's moving it for you, right? That's passive extension. So it's really important that your knee has the available motion to extend fully passively, but that's only half of the story. We have to look at active as well. So getting it passively is key, because if you can't get it passively, you're not going to be able to get it actively. But just because you get it passively doesn't mean you're going to get it actively. So what does active mean? Active means I want you to use your muscles to straighten your knee, and then we're going to look to see, does the knee fully extend to the same symmetry as the other side? So for example, in this image here, actively, this is a front camera view. Obviously, I'm looking at the bottom of his feet. The cues are straighten your knees as best as you can. And you can see the left side gets a little bit higher than the right side. So this, you might be like, John, well, that's such a small difference. I'm telling you, it's super important, right? So this is a way to see if we can actively use our muscles to get our knee fully straight once we have that passive motion. All right, so let's take a look at this video here. I'm going to take a look at just a small part of this video. Let's play it first. Right, so what commonly happens is when we go to straighten our knee, especially in those early stages, we're going to get what we call a co-contraction from our quads and our hamstrings, which basically means, like, if I said, hey, I want you to flex your bicep, no problem. If I want you to flex your tricep, no problem. What happens is when I ask you to flex your tricep, you flex your bicep as well. That's kind of what goes on here at the knee, is that the hamstrings also contract as well, which doesn't allow us to access that knee range of motion, that extension range of motion that we want. So you can have something like this where I say, go ahead, straighten your knee. And there becomes like a little bit of like a tenting under the knee. What we want is this right here, right? So right now in the video, that's what we want to happen, right? As I push down, we want the heel to pop up. Now, if you don't have hyperextension like this on your non-surgical leg, nothing to worry about if your heel doesn't pop up. But if your non-surgical leg can do this, like we said earlier, your surgical leg better be able to do this, right? This is what we call a heel pop. And there's a couple ways that we can work on this, right? So one way is to take a towel roll, something small, and basically put it behind your knee. So what this is going to do, it's going to give you what we call an external cue. So basically it gives you something to focus on, right? You're going to think about crushing the towel with the back of your knee. And that's going to help you just focus on getting those quads going, right? And this is a nice way to work on active knee extension, right? So see that there? I'm pushing down, crushing the towel. Another cue you can use is you can scoot forward if you're on a bench or a table and get your heel off of the table, because having your heel on the table sometimes gives your body this feedback to kind of use your hamstrings a little bit more. So if we get your heel off the table, it should definitely help that. All right. And then same concept here. You're going to straighten your knee and see if you can get every little bit of knee extension range of motion you can do there. And this can also be combined with the towel as well. You can have your heel off and also place the towel into there as well. Right. So that's a nice little trick there for working on active knee extension. So stay tuned for next week's video on my go-to exercises to work on knee extension range of motion. I'll see you guys then.